The Michael Berry Show.
Well, let's check in with what's going on with the Supreme Court with none other than our resident legal expert on all matters jurisprudential, the esteemed Professor Josh Blackman. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Let's start with this case of the religious school. I'll be Josh Blackman, you be the student. What was our little intern's name? Scarborough? What was her real name?
Scarborough, yep. Adele.
Adele, yeah. Adele Villarreal? No, it's the Jewish school's name.
Schlenker.
Adele Schlenker. So, Miss Schlenker.
She graduates in about a couple weeks. Yeah.
And then she's going to do a federal clerkship?
Yeah. She'll be with Judge O'Connor in Fort Worth and then Judge Ho up in Dallas.
Oh, how cool is that? I see her mother on occasion at the Carrabba's on Voss. She's got she's part of a social group up there. Yeah, she's a cutie patootie, her. I love her. Yeah. And she grew up in the generation of tight-fitting jeans, so she will wear very tight-fitting jeans, which I find to be attractive in an I wouldn't say she's an older woman, but she's not in her 20s. Recite for me, if you would, the facts of this religious school case and why this matters.
Sure. So for the longest time, the Supreme Court has said that there has to be a separation of church and state. That's not actually in the Constitution, but the Supreme Court kind of made it up. States have been experimenting over the years with, for example, vouchers that can be used in a religious school. And then for a time we said, well, you can use this for, math class or science class, but not for religious class. And then more recently, the current court sort of turned and said, no, that's not right. That if a school is giving money for a non-religious school voucher, they can't discriminate against religious schools. So Oklahoma had a different idea. Oklahoma said, why don't we just create a charter school that's run by the Catholic Church? And that's St. Isidore's. It's an online academy. It's meant for people in Oklahoma who don't live near a Catholic church. There's no Catholic school. And the school basically funds it. So the same way that you send your kid to a charter school like KIPP or something else, you can send them to a religious Catholic school. And this is the basis of this school. Now, the state Supreme Court and even the state Attorney General, Republicans, said this is unconstitutional. So you have a situation where Republican legislature said, this is fine, and the Republican AG said, no, this is not fine. And then the state Supreme Court said this is a violation of the church and state provision of the state constitution, and it's unconstitutional.
This bothers me so much. To start with, as you know better than I, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to the Danbury Baptists assuring them that there would be no official state religion, which comes from the Anglican Church, and the king announcing that he was both the head of state monarch and the head of the church, and he only did it out of necessity because he wanted to marry someone that the church wouldn't allow him to. And Jefferson, if I have the story correct, assured the Danbury Baptists in a letter, worry not, government will not intrude into religion, and we certainly will not establish a state religion. There will be a separation between what we do and what you do. It was an assurance to the church, not a promise to the atheists. It makes me crazy. But in any case, is there some basis? I mean, okay, in the arguments that have been made, you refer to them as a religious Catholic school. I put you on the spot, so you didn't have time to think it through. You would have never written that. But so obviously a Catholic school would presumably be a religious school. In what way is it different than any other school? I mean, we could argue that your average public school is a religious woke school, but what separates them? Is it a required prayer? Is it a class?
Right. So the school is run by the diocese, right? The diocese basically managing the school the same way you'd have a military academy or even just like a private organization. The key issue is the school isn't just giving, vouchers of their money to this religious entity. It's basically considered a state school. And the question is, does it then become under the Constitution because it's basically a state chartered school? Can the state charter a religious academy? That's basically the question here for this case.
Is there some sort of, I may be going too granular into the weeds here, but is there some sort of designation that makes it a, quote, religious school in Oklahoma?
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's religious instruction. Usually, I don't know the specifics. I think there's Usually half the day is religious and about half the day is secular studies. They have the division of labor, and they have prayer in the classroom. They have religious services. They probably cover, I would say, Catholic holidays. They don't cover the Jewish holidays. It's a Catholic school in every sense of the word.
Well, you can't cover the Jewish holy days because there are too darn many of them.
There are a lot of them, yeah.
There are a lot of them. Michael T. started at Temple Emmanuel, has a school called the Becker School, and I have a friend, Paul Strug, and his wife was the assistant administrator. We started there. They only went up through kindergarten, and we were always on some sort of holiday break. What a great school! Hold with me, Professor Josh Blackman of South Texas College of Law is our guest. Renowned Supreme Court expert Josh Blackman, professor of law at the South Texas College of Law in downtown Houston, the finest litigation factory in the country. Believe it or not, that is true. A better litigation and appellate preparation program than my wife's alma mater, the University of Houston, with all the O'Quinn money and plenty of other money. Better litigation program, training program than the University of Texas, of which I am very proud, a top 10 institution. Better than Harvard, better than Stanford, better than Georgetown. It is the best in the country. And people who practice in a courtroom, that is a litigator, will tell you that pound for pound, graduate for graduate, that is the best program in the country. Professor Blackman, what do you make of this case? What is the actual ruling? Who were the important players who wrote the majority, and what does that mean for parish schools, Jewish schools across the country?
Well, the case is being argued tomorrow, so we don't have a ruling quite yet.
Oh, I thought we had a ruling. Okay,
but
my
I
bad.
think no. Yeah, so the case will be argued tomorrow, and just one little wrinkle here. Justice Barrett, who we've talked a bit about, is actually recused from the case. And the exact reason why is not entirely clear. One of the people who founded it was actually one of Barrett's colleagues from Notre Dame and actually her best friend. And it seems that Barrett stepped down because her best friend was involved in the case. So now it is entirely possible this case goes to a 4-4 split, in which case the lower court ruling stands and the Catholic schools lose. So this actually may not generate much of anything in the end.
Oh, she is such a disappointment. There's that. I won't ask you to opine on this, but I will. There is that crowd of people. She's pro-life. We got to put her there. She's wrong on everything else, but she's pro-life. All right. Now this is what you got. This is the Mike Pence of Supreme Court justices. Let's talk about President Trump's authority or ability to deport bad guys that is being challenged in court. Where are we on that?
Oh, this is a mess. So there's a lot of things going on here, one of which is something called the Alien Enemies Act. It's a law that no one ever heard of before this year. It was passed in the 1790s during the John Adams administration, so we're talking a long time ago, and it's been used by presidents during various wars to basically deport enemies who are in this country illegally. It's a weird thing that when you're at a state of war with someone, they don't accept your aliens. So imagine during World War II, we have enemy aliens who are Japanese. We can't say, hey, Japan, do you want to take these people from us? That doesn't work. That's why there were detention camps. People don't quite get that part of it. The issue here is that President Trump has declared members of these various gangs, Tren de Aragua, MS-13, others, as basically terrorists and enemy aliens. He's tried to remove a number of people with affiliations in these gangs. These people deny they're gang members. They say that there's nothing wrong with them, that they're just regular people. Courts have sort of blocked Trump's removal of these aliens, and even the Supreme Court got in the game and said, no, you can't remove them right away. It's kind of in a weird state of a holding pattern, right? Once the courts intervene, contrary to what you might see, Trump is not ignoring the courts. These people are still in a facility somewhere in Texas. They've not been removed. There are other laws that permit removal of aliens, and Trump has used his authority to send people to this prison in El Salvador. So even if he loses on the Alien Enemies Act, there's still lots of ways of getting these people out of the country. It's not the only way, but seems to have getting the most attention.
Do you expect the courts to in any way restrict his ability? You take the case of this gangbanger MS-13 member who was returned. Interestingly, he's one of the few who's originally from El Salvador, which adds a wrinkle to the case. So Nayib Bukele has said a few weeks ago that he's not returning him to the United States. I can't. He's not welcome there. Do you expect this to slow down in any way President Trump's deportations to El Salvador?
Not really. I mean, it's sort of a high-profile issue, but it's only a small number of people who are actually subject to this detainer. Most people can be removed under other authorities. If Trump had just said, we're deporting these people because they're alleged gang members, there would have been no, litigation on it. He could have just done it. It might have taken a little bit longer. But by going down this sort of calling them alien enemies and trying to remove them without all the processes, he's getting hung up. So I think eventually this issue will quiet down and move past it. But there are definitely efforts by the courts to basically stop Trump from using the authorities that he probably does have.
You said if he had gone through a court process, but do you think he could have made it through? I mean, you look at these district court judges across the country who are trying to halt this. Some of these cases would end up just, dragging on incessantly in the court system, and I think he was aware of that.
That might be right, but one of the perks of being the president, he gets to decide where these people are held, and he would probably have brought the removal actions in favorable courts, right? It's a weird thing where these judges in New York and D.C. and Boston are telling judges, people in Texas what to do. That's not how the law works. Usually you bring the lawsuit where the person is being detained, but these judges have been asserting what's called jurisdiction, asserting power over people who are far beyond their boundaries.
Very interesting. Are there any other cases bubbling out there that you're keeping an eye on?
I think the sort of the biggest issue now is what the Roberts Court does with birthright citizenship. That issue will be argued in about 2 weeks from now. I don't think Trump's going to win this one. I'm just not quite sure how he loses. The court is just very crafty, and we explain how this sort of works. When the litigation began, these lawsuits were brought by a bunch of blue states, so Washington and New York and so on. Texas did not bring such a lawsuit. So the government says, look, even if New York and California and whatever these states that got their rulings, are right, limit the remedy to just those states. Why should Texas have to be subject to this rule if they don't want it? So I think the court's going to sort of just avoid that altogether and say, we declare the meaning of the 14th Amendment, and all children of illegal aliens are citizens, and they'll just sort of move on. But the procedural issues here are actually kind of tricky, and the court may try and duck all of it and just rule against Trump at the outset.
But then we would have a modern disposition serving as precedent on an issue that has been argued for some time. Do you know when the last case on the matter was ruled upon? Because this was an issue. I've got audio of Harry Reid, then Democrat senator, later majority leader from the state of Nevada in 1992 or 94, talking about this violation of America's sovereignty and integrity, women coming across the border, this birth tourism and dropping babies. We know that Chinese nationals are doing this now. They're just on the verge of having their baby, and they come to the United States and drop a baby, and now the baby's a citizen.
The Michael Berry Show.